don't know if you saw any pictures of Audrey, one of our mascots that has since passed on, but she was in a bucket for over 20 years, and she was basically folded up and almost looked like an ashtray or like a juicer.
You're listening to Marc Ouellette, who is the founder of Little Rescue. Little Rescue is a reptile rescue based out of Ontario, Canada. They mainly focus on red ear sliders. Now, red ear sliders are one of those species in the hobby that tend to end up in the hands of rescues a lot, and also are one of the worst invasive species that the hobby is facing because of their, hardiness and ability to really survive in a lot of the conditions that North America has to offer. In this episode, Marc and I discuss basic care for red ear slider turtles. We also discuss why they have become a bit of an issue in the hobby, and we discuss why they make great pets and some of the biggest mistakes that new owners make. Marc also fills us in on some future plans he has with the rescue that are absolutely unbelievable, and I'm really excited to have him share that idea with you. This is going to be one of the coolest things that could happen for this species. As I said, they are an issue species in the hobby, and his plan in the future is definitely going to be, a stepping stone in the right direction. If you are a fan of the show and you want to show your support, definitely hit subscribe on YouTube and iTunes. Enjoy the show. Hi, I'm Dillon, and you're listening to the Animals at Home podcast. All right, well, Marc, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Well, you're one of those characters in the hobby who fulfills a role that's probably simultaneously the most important role you can fill, and also the role that gets the least amount of support and recognition for what you do. Yes. And part of the reason why I started the podcast was to help promote education and proper care. And one of the things that I noticed in the hobby is that we started to shift away from that animal first type of behavior, which I think is super important. And obviously that aligns with what you do. And when I picture the reptile hobby, I picture this giant machine that's just driving down the road and, throwing off collateral damage as it moves forward, and, characters like you running after it and just trying to pick up pieces as they fall off the back of the truck, because that is really kind of what ends up happening. So before we get into the rescue, because I do want to obviously talk about that, can we start with, how did reptiles enter your life? What's that story?
Well, the story is typical for somebody of my age. I got into the reptile hobby thanks to the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. They started when I was young. I was probably around 7 or 8 and stuff like that. And I had my first turtle at the age of 9, and I actually still have him. His name is Apollo. He's 20 some odd years old, probably closer to 30 now. And that's basically how I got started, primarily with turtles.
So a turtle was the first reptile pet you had got into?
Yes.
Cool. And then how did that proceed to starting the rescue? Obviously, you don't jump into a rescue. I'm sure there was a kind of an infant stage or some sort of process that you went through to go from just a hobbyist to starting the rescue.
Well, it always starts with one turtle, and then start getting a couple of more and stuff like that. And then it just started going to reptile expos, and I became friends with somebody who was running a turtle rescue there, who has since retired. And just watching Kijiji and seeing like 200 and some odd turtles being posted for free to good home and all those, because it was just such a problem, especially with red-eared sliders, that I knew I had to do something. So I went out and I bought my first tank for the rescue. Is a 180-gallon glass tank, and then it just snowballed from there.
So did you kind of just start by going onto Kijiji and just accepting any turtles that people were trying to get rid of type thing?
No, actually, I never had to deal with Kijiji. It's just once people find out that someone's taking turtles, they just gravitated to me.
Yeah, that is one of those... It is interesting, and I do want to talk about kind of the care of the turtles, then we'll get into that. But in terms of the... so how many years ago was that when you just started, just begun?
Well, we started the rescue 10 years ago, and I'd say about 5 or 6 years ago is when we became a registered charity, which helped obviously bring in more funds, and it just got larger and larger and larger from there.
So at the beginning, was it just something that you ran out of your home, and then 5 or 6 years ago it expanded?
Well, it started in a 1-bedroom apartment, so...
Oh my goodness.
And then into a 2-bedroom apartment, and then to a condo, and actually, I don't think you can see it there, but behind me is a 1,200 square foot facility. It used to be a mechanic shop, but that's now the rescue.
Yeah, I've seen the pictures on the website, so that must have opened up a lot more opportunity for you guys.
Opportunity and space, yeah, and we're still doing renovations in there. It's been an ongoing project for the last 2 years, but we hope everything, everything's good in there, and that it's all nice, climate controlled and everything. So it's good for the turtles and the other reptiles in there.
Yeah, that's the thing with being in Canada. We have to deal with that, hot summers, cold winters. So in terms of the day-to-day work now, because I was actually very surprised to see the numbers that you had when I was on the website a couple of days ago, looking at the amount of numbers of, I think, is it almost all turtles right now? I think there was like a bearded dragon or two.
Yeah, it's primarily turtles. It always has been. We've got about 150 turtles right now in the rescue. Not all of them are on the site. Some of them we board turtles and other reptiles as well. And, some come in that are in really rough shape, and they until they're cleared by our vet, then they don't go up for adoption. And we do get some snakes. In fact, we're doing we're picking up, I think, 11 or 12 snakes today. After this, we're going down to Brampton and picking up some from someone. And so once they're done, they'll be up for adoption as well.
Wow. So that's just an individual who's not interested in caring for them anymore?
Their own personal reasons that, they have to get rid of their collections. So
okay, well, and sometimes that happens, right? You can't. That's the thing with reptiles; they live a very long time, and you can't necessarily predict 15 years down the road or whatever it is. So having a spot like your rescue obviously opens that up to saving the animal's life, really, because you don't know what kind of condition they'll end up in. So on a day-to-day basis, what does your day look like if you have 150 turtles?
The good thing with reptiles, they don't have to eat every day. Basically, in the mornings, we'll go in, we'll check the waters for the terrestrial animals, check the water levels for the tanks and stuff like that, scoop up anything we need to. And then, at night, we'll come back in, and we have a schedule of when we feed the animals. And then we do have volunteers that come by on the weekends to help clean tanks and stuff like that. So it's a lot of animals, but it's not as labor intensive as a regular animal shelter.
Yeah, no, that's true. That is the good thing about reptiles for sure. So why turtles? What do you think has drawn you towards turtles besides the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles?
Well, they're pretty cool animals. I mean, people don't give them the credit that they deserve. They actually have a lot of personality to them. They are great pets. They're a little bit more interactive than fish when you're watching them, stuff like that. And they do know you. They understand you, and again, they do live up to around 50 years. We've had some that are in their 40s. They're older than I am. Come through the rescue.
Yeah, that was one of the interesting things. A couple weeks ago, I had recorded an episode about enrichment for reptiles, and one of the turtles kept coming up as a species that they've done a lot of research for learning, and they do pick up on things. And I don't know if it's because they're a little more social. They do. I don't know. They don't really live in groups in the wild, but I guess they kind of do. They live around other turtles, and so that's really interesting. The turtles are kind of an issue in the hobby, right? Because of the fact that one of the quotes on your website is that they start out so small and they do grow quite large. So, what are some of the biggest mistakes people make when they're getting into the turtle hobby?
Well, the biggest mistake is the lack of research. We have a lot of roadside vendors that sell in the GTA area and stuff like that, and they'll tell you what you want to hear versus what the turtle actually needs. So they sell those little critter carriers that are about this big with a turtle in it, and they say it'll just grow to the size of its container. I'm like, well, if it only lasts 6 months, yeah, probably. But you guys keep growing, and we've had some. I don't know if you saw any pictures of Audrey. One of our mascots that has since passed on, but she was in a bucket for over 20 years, and she was basically folded up and almost looked like an ashtray or like a juicer or something like that. Her shell was so deformed.
And so she was just kept in like a pail, like some kind of...
Yeah, wow. Pail and fed egg whites because that's what the lady was told.
Oh my God. And I mean, that's the crazy thing about reptiles is it's kind of good and bad for them is, one, they live so long, and two, they are so durable that you can put a turtle in a bucket and feed it eggs for 20 years and it actually won't die, which is, it's sad, but at the same time, obviously she comes into your possession. And so that turtle, Was it for like they gave it to you, or you kind of went and rescued it from that situation?
Well, the story for that one, the lady had passed away, and it was the next of kin that actually brought the turtle to animal control to be put down. And but the vet there kind of took pity on her and contacted us, and at the time, I mean, we needed another turtle like a hole in the head, but you know what, this one was so unique and has such a tragic story that she became one of our lead mascots. In fact, she has still to this day has her own Facebook page, and she's got about 5,000 or so fans on that page. So that's, I know you're going to ask about the future plans for the rescue, so I won't go too much into detail, but we do have some big plans that are hopefully coming on, hopefully, within the next 10 years.
Yeah, and I know that that's kind of dedicated to her, right? You have these large plans of the future in her memory, sort of thing. Yeah, no, that's very cool. So, in terms of one of the other issues with the turtles is that they have become this pretty bad invasive species. Now, I don't know, in Canada, do we have an issue with that because of the winters, or can they actually get through some of the winters in some of the southern areas?
Oh yeah, in fact, they're much more prevalent than people assume. Grenadier Pond in Toronto is just proliferated with turtles, and I've been contacted from the M&R Ministry of Natural Resources as far north as Sudbury that have captured sliders that have been living out in the wild. So they're good. They're just as good as snapping turtles for going as far north as they can.
So they just hunker down for the winter and then just go. And because they are from the southern states, so I guess it's not a huge stretch to get them up here. And typically, I guess that's just people releasing them. Like they get tired of them and they see other turtles in the wild that are native, and they just assume that you can chuck them into the pond.
It's a little bit of everything. Some people are like, well, it's just a turtle, so here's a lake, here you go, kind of thing. And then there are other religions where it's good luck to take a turtle and release it to give yourself some luck. So that's another thing that kind of have to fight with.
And they're pretty damaging on the ecosystem as well, right? Like invasive species are hard on the native ecosystem, so that's kind of not the best luck.
Well, they're larger than painted turtles. They're about the size of the map turtles that we have in the area, as well as the Blandings turtles. So these guys will just muscle them just right out of their own territory.
Wow. So do you think that they should be a staple in the hobby? Like they are a staple. Like a lot of people own sliders, but they are that kind of issue species. Do you think that they should be kind of reserved for people who are a little more advanced in the hobby, or is it just an education issue?
It's primarily an education issue. If people knew how to care for them correctly, they would either decide, maybe I don't want one, or okay, I'm going to do this right.
Yeah, that makes sense. So what are some reasons to own a turtle? Because I know there's obviously some positives. Like obviously we've discussed some of the negatives, but there's some positive things that come from ownership.
Well, they can be quite interactive, especially, the more you handle them, the more they get used to you. I have friends, this one girl in particular, she lives with her turtles, and they would sleep on her chest. They're very very good species to have, I find, anyways. They're fun to be around, and they do last forever. They could be a lifetime pet for most people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's one of the issues is people don't get into them for a lifetime pet, right? But if they were kind of sold that way, that would make it a lot better. Because obviously there are some great turtle owners out there. There's tons of them.
Oh, yeah.
Is breeding turtles something that happens a lot? Like when I think of reptile breeding, the first thing that comes to mind is obviously ball pythons, which I think tend to get overbred just for the excitement of the morphs. But are people breeding sliders to sell to make money, or is it just mostly wild caught things that are infiltrating?
Well, it's not so much wild caught. There are actually turtle farms down in the States, Alabama, Louisiana, Texas, and those areas. They literally breed turtles by the tons. And then they're sold for commercial pet trade, as well as to some countries for food staple. So there's that. There are I have heard that some of those roadside vendors do breed their turtles. I can't really confirm any of that, but it does happen.
Yeah, because I know in the States, like I think there's laws that that you're not allowed to sell turtles that are a certain size, right? If they're too small, they have to be a certain size to be able to sell them. Or that's what I've. Yeah, do we have that in Canada as well, or is that just in the United States? That's just Canada.
Just in
Okay.
the States, yeah.
Oh yeah, just in the States, yeah. So in terms of care for because this is one of the things that you said, you get your critter carrier or your critter carrier and then you assume that's its lifetime home, and that's probably one of the biggest issues is people don't picture that foot long turtle living in their home. Let's run through some care of the adult red ear slider. What are some of the basic requirements?
The biggest thing is the general rule of thumb in our hobby for turtles specifically is 10 gallons per inch of shell for one turtle. So you're talking like Spartacus, our biggest turtle that we have now. She's 13 inches long. She's over 7 pounds of turtle. So she's in a 150-gallon bin by herself. That's kind of like, it's pretty much the minimum, really. Bigger is always better when it comes to turtles, and they do need a place to get out and bask, be it a platform or a dock or a piece of wood or something for them to get up on. They do need a basking light and a UV light. UV lights need to be changed, as every 6 months to a year, depending on the bulb and stuff. That's another thing that people don't realize, and we'll get some that have been they've been using this light for 5-6 years and they don't understand why the turtle shell is soft. Well, that's why. And but the biggest thing aside from the size of tank is the size of the filter. Turtles are dirty animals. They also live in their own toilet. So we always suggest get a filter rated for twice the size of the tank that it's in, at least. That helps keep everything cleaner. The cleaner the water, the healthier the turtle, the less stink that everybody says turtles have. Turtles actually don't have a smell, but again, they are living in their own toilet. So you don't clean the tank, well, yeah, it's going to smell.
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, exactly. It's if you don't clean your animal's enclosure, it's going to start to smell. You can't blame that on the animal. And then in terms of the filter, like that, they just typically use like a canister filter, like something from the aquarium hobby.
Yeah, right now, I mean, the biggest ones that you can get are the Fluval FX series. They're massive filters and they're really good. Now, for the rescue, for our purposes, I've actually built my own filters, but they're designed off of pond filters, so they're rated for like 2,000-3,000 gallons, kind of thing. So that's just because I have so many turtles per tub. We have them in community setups and stuff like that. So
yeah, and that's the other thing I was going to ask. In terms of community, can you get away with a community as long as you have the space? They're okay in a community.
Yeah, we have 300-gallon stock tanks. So basically, those big, huge cylinder things that cattle and stuff like that drink out of. Yeah, we usually do about 10 to 15 per tub. That's when we're kind of getting down to the minimum of what the turtle would need. I mean, bigger again is always better if we can get away with it. Generally, the girls tend to get along a lot better. Is the boys, especially in the spring and in the fall, they tend to want to fight with each other. So it's always a gamble. I'm like, okay, we have this turtle in here. I can see him. He's starting to attack the other one. So he's got to go into his own tank. And we're actually a PetSmart registered charity. So we have, I think, 15 or 16 stores that we're in within the GTA. So if we find a fighter, generally he's the first one on the list to go to one of the stores once a turtle there has been adopted.
Oh, cool. So you bring the animal to the store, and then they set it up with an adoptive, like a home that they can go home with. Oh, that's cool.
We have our own kiosks in the store, and then they would adopt the turtles from the store. It makes it more convenient for people to find.
So do you go to the store yourself and set up the kiosk, or one of your volunteers is at the kiosk? Okay.
Yeah, the kiosk is permanent in the store, and then the idea is that if somebody adopts the turtle from the store, if they buy everything from the PetSmart, they can adopt out the turtle without, they don't have to let us know. But if the person says, okay, I have a tank, whatever, then we would step in and, we need to see the tank, just pictures or whatever, talk to the people, and then we would approve the adoption from there.
Right. Yeah. And that's the hard part about this industry is that that process is it's a lot of work to make sure, people having to prove what their home enclosure looks like and all that. And obviously that doesn't happen probably 95% of the time. And that is the challenge, right? Because, at the same time, breeders want to make money. They don't really care about what's going on at home. It's just like, take the turtle and give me how much does a turtle cost?
Well, I don't know what they cost, but our adoption fee is only $30 per turtle.
Right. So that's a great way to go about it, because they're going home to a good setup. Do you allow them to continue to contact you if they have questions?
Oh yeah, and a lot of people do. My wife is actually in charge of the adoption side of the rescue, and yeah, she's more than willing to say no to people if we feel that they're just not a good home. No, sorry, you're not getting one.
Yeah, no, that's a fair way to go. And then in terms of kind of getting back to care, these turtles people do have them in outdoor ponds. That works probably well in the summertime here.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
And if it's big enough, you're talking like, it's a 100-foot tank or 100-foot pond that goes down well below the frost line, then, the turtles will adapt, and they could keep them out there year round. But if somebody buys one that's just like a pond liner that they drop into the earth, well, then we ask, okay, you got to take them in. They should all be in by this time because it's getting pretty cold out there. So
yeah, it's minus 13 here this morning, so it's feeling like winter all of a sudden. And then in terms of diet, what are they eating?
Well, they are omnivores, and they're opportunistic. So for us, it's the staple diet of the turtle pellets. We use all brands because whenever a turtle is surrendered, they usually get, we get all the equipment and the food and everything like that. So we just have this big, huge vat that we have all the food in. And we'll give them, worms and bugs and cooked chicken sometimes, feeder fish, that kind of stuff. So they'll eat a little bit of everything.
Gotcha. Yeah. I just lost my train of thought there. Oh yeah. So in between your day job and the rescue, how many hours are you putting in a week, do you think?
Way too many.
Yeah.
My day job, I'm working 12 hours a day out on the road kind of thing. So very little time that I can spend at home dealing with the reptiles. So usually, I'm home by around 7 p.m. About 9 or 10 is when I'm like, okay, I'm just too tired to do anything anymore. Mm-hmm. And then crash from there. But yeah, it's good that we have volunteers that can come in and help with taking care of the animals and such. So.
Sure, yeah. And then obviously every couple of weeks you're at a show as well.
Yeah, we got another one coming, the 2-day one coming in 2 weeks at the International Center in Mississauga. So that's where we do a lot of our adoptions and fundraising too. So again, with all the equipment that we get in, sometimes it's just way too much stuff that we need for the rescue. So we sell it off. We call it like a rummage sale. It's almost like like a garage sale. People can donate, however much they feel, or whatever is reasonable for items. It is used items. Everything's in working condition, and it goes to a good cause.
Yeah, that's awesome. So when you go to a show, do you bring animals with you, or do you just kind of have a book to flip through? Like, these are the animals that we have open for adoption.
We do both. Generally, see, with turtles, we want to be careful, and we just don't seem to adopt turtles at expos. But we do have a rolling pond that we bring in as a big display that we'll have come up some of our ambassadors in. But primarily it'd be the bearded dragons, the geckos, the snakes and stuff like that we would bring to the shows. Generally, people who are coming there, they know what they want to get, and we'll sit there and talk to them for 20 minutes, half an hour, and it's all by intuition. Usually, if somebody the first question they ask is what's the sex and what's the weight in grams, okay, red flags there. But if they actually this is a beautiful animal, I would love to give this thing a good home. Okay, now we're feeling better about this.
Yeah, and I've talked about this before on the show, that breeding side to our hobby has just gone crazy, and it's almost too easy. Like, that's the other downside of reptiles, is they breed so easily with, the amount of knowledge that we've acquired in the hobby in the last 10 years, that people are going to go grab a animal to adopt just because it fits their breeding standards. I don't know if do you think there's any way around that? Like, how do we start shifting that focus back to the animal first?
Well, if there's an easy and cheaper way to basically fix the animals, that'd be good. But just with reptiles, turtles especially, you'd have to physically cut open the bottom of their shell, and you're looking at like a 90% mortality rate when it comes to just getting an animal fixed. Again, it's one of those things.
Yeah. Obviously, we can't do that. That is a lot of work, and even other reptiles that don't have a shell, it is very, very difficult. So with all this, obviously you are working 100% of the time, it seems like. What compels you to do this?
It's just the need for it. Animals, we get contacted from, humane societies and animal shelters and whatever. They don't have the knowledge or the space even to take in reptiles, so they try and find rescues, and the fact that we're a registered charity just makes it better for them. Sometimes they can't contact another rescue unless it is registered, so because there are some reptile rescues, I'll put that in air quotes, that are really just in a guy's basement. And yes, I know that's where I started, but again, we wanted to be as legitimate as possible.
Yeah, it just ends up being a guy that just wants a bunch of animals, and you can't really judge how good of care he is, providing for them. Yeah, it's unfortunate that our hobby has taken that turn, and that, it's great, the work that you're doing. Obviously, that's amazing, but at the same time, it's sad that we need that, and it's almost impossible for you to keep up with the demand as well.
Oh, let's not go into demand. For the past 6 years, we've had a standing waiting list, and right now my waiting list is about 10 months. Again, we have the capacity right now for about 150 to 160 turtles, if everything fits perfectly, kind of thing. And we've got another 75 to 80 just waiting to come in, and I get 5 to 6 phone calls every day, every single day. For people looking to I love it when they say, I want to donate my turtle. Well, okay, it's not how it goes, but all right, you're not doing me a favor by donating a turtle to me, but we will do our most of what we can. We'll do what we can to try and find that turtle a home and try and take care of it for them.
Yeah, I would prefer if you just donated your own time to learn how to take care of a turtle and enjoy it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a very strange problem that we have, and obviously, we're kind of in that seller's market where it just becomes like new animal. Like, when I see the amount of animals that get bred, I always, in the back of my head, is there a demand? And clearly there's not, because if you have a waiting list, the waiting list should be on the breeder side. It shouldn't be on the rescue side. There should be a waiting list of people that say, I want, I have 80 people that want a new turtle, not I have 80 people who don't want a turtle. So it is tricky to problem solve that, for sure. And in terms of the donations, what does specifically the donations go to?
Well, it goes to just the operation of the rescue. We do have a fund for veterinary care. We do have a vet that does help out, donates a lot of her time. Basically, we just pay for certain procedures and medication and stuff like that. We're running $600 a month for utility bills, and that's normal for us, summer and winter. It's just with all the lights and filters and everything that's running. We do. It just helps with the rescue, helps buy food, that kind of thing. That's about it, really.
Yeah, and I know that obviously that's all on your website. If people want to donate, they can do that. It's pretty simple, and the amount that you appreciate it, I'm sure you can't put into words.
Yeah, we're completely funded by private donations. We don't get any government grants or anything like that. So, and we're usually it's about $40,000 to $50,000 a year is what we're spending, just taking care of the rescue and going to these shows and doing all that.
Yeah, it's I'm sure it's hard to stay motivated to do that, but at the same time, the reward.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. We get contacted from people who have adopted from us too, and just you know pictures and the kids playing with the animals and stuff. So that does help. It makes us feel pretty good.
Yeah, yeah. You guys are good about sharing that kind of stuff on your Instagram, right? You share the people that have adopted. And
Mhm.
is there any favorite stories that you have of people that have adopted animals from you?
Oh geez. Well, that's a good one. I can't think of any offhand, but it's always good to hear that, and as you said, they always contact us if they need anything or have any suggestions, and sometimes turtles, if my turtle isn't acting right, what do you suggest? And I'm like, well, based on what you're saying, you might want to seek a vet because then it might be something wrong. It might be nothing, but it might be something, right? So.
Yeah, yeah. What are some of the most common illnesses and sicknesses that red ear sliders have to deal with?
Uh, uh, let's see here. Pneumonia is actually one where they do get congested. Uh, and you'll see that. So basically, they'll either stop swimming altogether, which is pretty unusual for a turtle, or they'll be swimming like kind of sideways. That means that one of their lungs is full of fluid. Just straight up antibiotics will take care of that. Usually, abscesses are another thing. Now, for humans, I mean, it's like it would mostly be like almost like a big, huge pimple or something like that. It's liquid filled. But for reptiles, it's actually uh, stronger. It's almost like a calcium deposit. So for turtles, they usually get them in their ears, which is the round side that you see on the side of their face. So they would have to be a local, anesthetic, lance removal, packed with gauze and all that kind of stuff. So it is the whole procedure. Generally, again, that's just bad water conditions. Usually, the cleaner the water, 9 times out of 10, a turtle will never need to see a vet.
Yeah, they're pretty hardy. So what do you have any personal pets or like I know you have I see a cat walking around and your dog.
Around here somewhere. We've got a little bit of everything here. It's quite the menagerie. Yeah, I mean, I have all of our ambassadors do stay with us. So we've got about so we must have about 30 or so animals between the cats and the dogs, and we've got some snakes and salamander and a couple of bearded dragons, and we've got tortoise, who's a lucky bugger that actually I built an addition to the side of the house just for him. It's gonna be it's gonna have heated floor and everything, so he's a leopard tortoise, so he needs the heat. So.
Yeah, yeah. So are those all animals that have been at some point, donated in air quotes to you, and then you just hung on to them because you like their character or their personality?
Yeah, most of them. Really, in the past 10 years, the only turtle that I've purchased myself, I have an albino slider, which is, cost me a pretty good chunk of change, but it's always something that I wanted. So there was one available, and I just took my prerogative basically to buy this one. So, and she's doing quite well. I think she's about 3 or 4 now, so she's getting about that big. So.
Cool. Yeah, yeah. And did they all stay out in the compound in the back, or do you have some that are in your home?
The most of my own pets are in the house. Yeah, so they're in the living room area. Not all of them could fit in the house, so some of them are in the rescue. Yeah.
Yeah. Your collection's big when the house is not big enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I know we kind of briefly touched on that, sort of your future plans. We don't have to get in too depth into that because I know that you're in the works, but that is a plan that you see kind of in the future. And do you see yourself as that your dream role?
It is. Well, I'll explain it. Because turtles are very hard to adopt out, and a lot of them, the average stay for a turtle at the rescue is a couple of years, and we just can't meet demand. What we want to do is actually build a massive, we're talking 100+ acre facility called Audrey's Legacy, which brings it back to Audrey. Basically, a sanctuary for turtles. Massive ponds that they can all go and spend the rest of their lives in peace, separated from the wildlife. That's the biggest thing that we have to deal with, is to make sure that wildlife can't get in and these guys can't get out. Because they're an invasive species. But that is the project that we are working on. We're talking it's going to be into the millions. We don't even know yet really what the cost is going to be, because that feasibility study is still being done. So we hope to have that started probably in the next couple of years if we can.
Is there anything like that currently in the country?
No, I don't even. Well, I've heard of one of all places, Switzerland, and they're a couple of years ahead of us, which is great, because I think you can't even have turtles there. So people, that they can't even adopt them out if they wanted to. But yeah, it's nothing like that in Canada, and I don't think there's many. It's maybe 2 or 3 in the States that are for turtles like that.
Is the idea that people would be able to come and look at them, interact with them, or would it be kind of closed off to the public and just be a place for a sanctuary for the turtles?
We're still working on that. It's one of those where it would be nice to have it open for the public, but the issue is that somebody's going to sneak in a turtle, and we're pretty positive that's going to happen. I hate to say that, but it's one of those where we have to think security as well.
Yeah, I guess I never thought about that. You're talking about someone kind of coming with a pet turtle in their bag and just throwing it into one of the ponds.
Yeah, the biggest thing that we do at the rescue is we keep the males and females separated. And again, 9 times out of 10, people, they don't even get that right when they fill out their surrender forms. They come by with, they say it's a boy, and well, no, that's a girl. She's about to lay eggs. So kind of thing.
Yeah, the turtles and the tortoises, I feel like that's the one reptile that everybody has their gender wrong. They're always the opposite of what they think. Because I guess, is there any easy way to sex a slider?
Yeah, at an adult size. For the babies, yes, it is. It's nearly impossible to tell. But for the adults, first off, the boys stay a third of the size of the females. So if the turtle is 8-9 inches big, you're probably looking at a female. Boys have long Freddy Krueger nails, and a tail twice the length of the girl. So that's just it's the main distinguishing features. I mean, you kind of tell, okay, after a while. I mean, I've dealt with thousands of turtles over the past 10 years. So, I mean, I'm pretty good at telling the sex of the turtles. So,
yeah. And I guess even in a large pond setting, keeping them separated is important. I mean, obviously, you don't want these rescued turtles to breed, because that sort of defeats the purpose. Is that the main issue there?
Yeah, exactly, and that's why we're thinking security there, because one boy gets into that female pond. Oh boy, you never know what'll happen.
How big is a clutch?
A clutch for a turtle, they can lay, I think, a dozen, if not more, eggs at a time, which is part of the problem. The fact that they are very good breeders for the sliders. That's why they don't cost that much. Somebody can go out and get one for $10 to $20 as a baby. That's why. But the turtles that do stay small, like the little mud turtles, I have one. He's a full-grown male Mississippi mud. He's 3 inches long. But the thing is, they only lay 1 egg a year. That's the issue, right?
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, and that's actually going to lead me to my next question. I know primarily you're into the red ear sliders, but are there other turtles that you add to the rescue as well?
Oh yeah, I mean, part of my collection too. I've got a couple of African species, Asian species, mud turtles and such. I've got a bunch of different ones myself. But it all depends on what gets surrendered to us. Lately, we've been getting a lot more of the Chinese golden threads. So I think there was a boost in popularity with them past few years, and of course now I'm starting to get into the adults for them. So.
Yeah, turtles are one of those things that I see people illegally importing them all the time, right? Poaching from the wild, like from Asia and things like, because they're so small, you can fit like 100 in a bag or whatever. You see people that get caught with like all these little coin-sized turtles in these pouches. Is that something that you see all the time in terms of poaching and?
Well, I hear about it now and then. The good thing is the Border Patrol is actually getting pretty good at catching these people. So we are hearing of them being prosecuted and taken away.
Yeah, no, that is good, because obviously that adds, and that could be the influx of a new species of turtle that is big in the pet hobby and nobody knows how to take care of it or anything. When someone gets a brand new turtle, what is the sort of the minimum size? Like, you can put a baby turtle in like a 10-gallon or something?
We always say for babies, at 20 gallons is always better, right? Is again, that's their whole world. A 10-gallon tank is only a few feet, if that. Even a 20-gallon is at least, usually the 20 gallons are about 30 inches or longer and stuff like that. So I have my guys in 70, like my boys anyways, in 75-gallon tanks. That's kind of the minimum that I want to keep them in myself. So
Yeah, they're not a species that gets intimidated by too large of a space, really.
no, they love to swim and they'll go for days.
Yeah, and I think that's another one of those, almost myths in the reptile hobby, that animals are too scared when they're in a large enclosure. And to some extent, some of them, yes, but it has to do with how you set it up. So do you have any decor in these tanks, or can they be like or do they kind of destroy stuff that's in there?
Turtles tend to redecorate whatever you put in their tank. Yeah, so I like using those rigid plastic, kind of decorations. They look like branches and stuff like that. It's something for them to kick around. If you use any of the plastic plants, they will try and nibble on them. So I want to stay away from that. And for turtles, we suggest not putting substrate in the bottom of the tank, especially those aquarium rocks, those different colored ones that you can get. The turtles will eat them because it tastes good, but they can get impacted. And I've seen that in turtles, and it's not pretty.
Yeah, no, definitely. So just bare bottom is really the way to go.
It's also easy on the filter too. I mean, if you want to put something, you can get like sandbox sand, as long as you wash it. That's a little bit easier. It looks more like a natural bottom, but even if the turtle eats a little bit, it's a lot easier to pass that.
Sure. Yeah. No, that makes sense. Cool. Well, so if people want to donate to the charity and help you guys out, because the work that you're doing is unbelievably important, and I do really hope that you have a ton of support behind you and that just continues to grow. Can you let people know where they can do that?
Well, best is right on our website. We have one of those boxes for Canada Helps. The good thing with that is you can donate online through our website. Everything is all secured. Your information is not passed out to anybody like that. And you get a charity receipt emailed directly to you. So it's very quick. Everything is taken care of. And, it's just like that. Just through our website, littlerescue.net. You can even see it on our Facebook page. Everything, our Facebook, Instagram, Twitter is at Little Rescue. So
perfect. Yeah, and I'll put everything in the show notes so people can to find. Are you constantly looking for volunteers, or do you kind of have a set of volunteers that you're happy with?
We're always good to have more help. In fact, tomorrow I'm bringing on 2 new volunteer coordinators that are going to help just take some of the stress off of me and my board of directors to help, kind of foster new volunteers. We do a lot of outreach, right? And with me working as much as I do, I just can't be at every event. We get contacted by pet stores all the time. So to have more people trained to go out and do that for us, just help raise awareness and raise funds for the rescue, the better. Help at the shelter too is always needed.
Yeah. So if you're in the GTA or the Greater Toronto area, for those who are in the States that don't know what that is, they won't be volunteering. But if you're in the GTA and you want to volunteer, they can just contact you. And
yeah, definitely.
Cool. Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time here. I think that it's a really interesting story, and it's one of those things where it's rare to find someone in the hobby who's zeroed in on a single species. And obviously, you deal with a lot of different species, but really your focus is the red ear slider, and they are that problem issue in the hobby. And we do need someone like yourself to sort of take the stand and help them out. So that's awesome.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
All right. We'll talk to you later.
All right.
All right, thank you very much for listening to today's episode. I hope you enjoyed that. That was definitely a really good conversation I had with Marc. I'm very excited for his plan for Audrey's legacy. I do hope that is something that they can put together in the next couple of years. It is a giant project, but it would be so beneficial for the hobby. Definitely make sure you check out his social media as well as the website. It's littlerescue.net, and that's just little, Little, res, R-E-S, and then Q, the letter Q. Everything is in the show notes below, so it's littlerescue.net. That's his website. If you have a couple bucks to spare, definitely consider donating it to Marc. You know exactly where it's going. You know that it's going to help, the 150 turtles or so that he has on his property that him and his wife are taking care of. It is so important that we support the rescues that are in the hobby, because without people like Marc and his wife who have this giant operation, we may not be able to have reptiles as a hobby. We might not be able to keep them as pets. You know how many people there are out there that would rather us not have reptiles as pets, and they would use the poor husbandry that other people are providing as evidence that we shouldn't be keeping them. But with people like Marc and Little Rescue, that is the hobby saying, hey, we're going to take care of ourselves. We're going to make sure that we're there to collect the collateral damage that happens as a result of the hobby. And, it's a lot of work. Hearing him talk about the amount of work, it's really unbelievable. I know most of us are not willing to do the amount of work that it would take to run an operation like that. So if you can spare a few dollars, you know exactly where it's going. I know he would really, really, really appreciate it. And of course, the animals will greatly appreciate it as well. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. I really appreciate the listen. If you want to subscribe, make sure you do that on YouTube and or iTunes, and head to animalsathome.ca/podcast, and you can learn how to support me there as well. Talk to you next time.